Hey everyone, it's me, Rami Marks, your tangled yogi out here in Northern California. Welcome to the Winds of Gratitude Zentangle class. I'm about to teach this for the San Rafael Public Library, but I wanted to also have it out here for you to try as well. So let's go ahead and talk about the things that we're going to need for class today. I'm going to be working with my trusted Prismas pen or my Micron PN pen. I'll also be working with a Jelly Roll 10 gel pen. I will be working with a graphite pencil and a tortillon, known as a blending stump. And if you don't have a blending stump, grab a Q-tip out of the bathroom and you'll be just fine. You know me, I am a Prismacolor girl. Grab your Prismacolor pencils. We're going to have a lot of fun with this. And then if you don't have Prismacolor pencils, don't worry about it. Grab whatever color pencils you have. We're going to have a lot of fun. Just play along. I will be working on a tile that's 4.5 inches by 4.5 inches on super smooth paper. This is really nice cardstock. You can use vellum if you want to. Any kind of smooth paper or your favorite sketchbook will do just fine. So with that said, let's get started with the Winds of Gratitude. Many of you know that I like to do a little centering exercise before we get started with class, so let's go ahead and take a comfortable seated position. Allow your feet to touch down on the floor. Let your shoulders melt away from your ears. You can let your hands rest in your lap. And if you're okay with it, allow your eyes to close for a moment. And just for this moment here, letting your attention come to your breath as you gently breathe in and softly exhale. As you breathe in, feel your body expand with breath. And as you exhale, feel the release. One more time, breathing in and then letting it go. And just staying with your breath for the next few moments. I'm going to share a quote, and this is from James Baldwin. And he says, "The longer I live, the more deeply I learn that love, whether we call it friendship or family or romance, is the work of mirroring and magnifying each other's light. It's gentle work, steadfast work, life-saving work. In those moments when life and shame and sorrow occlude our own light from our view. But here, there is still a clear-eyed, loving person to beam it back. In our best moments, we are that person for one another." Just taking a moment to think about anyone in your life who has been there for you in your toughest time and offering gratitude for that person. Or maybe it was just the kindness of a stranger on a day when you really needed that kindness. And taking in one more deep breath right here. Let it go with a sigh. And in your own timing, wiggling in your fingertips and wiggling in your toes. Adding vision back in by blinking in your eyes. And let's get ready to tangle. I've got my graphite pencil in my hand here, and I'm just going to go ahead and start to create a frame for this piece. You can see that I'm going to connect the dots, and you can see that my frame is going to be fairly thin. I want to leave as much space as I can for our string today. And for those of you who are new to Zentangle, your string is the spaces in which you work to put your patterns in. And so I really want to leave as much of it as I can for the string itself. Now, once I've got my frame, I'm going to go up to the top where I think the middle is, and I'm just going to put a little dot. And I'm going to create these two columns here. So you can see I've got two spaces in which to work. I'm going to turn the tile, and I'm going to do it again. Now for this particular string, I feel like the string has a very southwest kind of feel to it. It almost looks like a Zia, which is a really beautiful Native American symbol. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come in and I'm going to do an aura. And I'll go over to the other side. And then I'll turn my tile and I'll do the same thing again. And you can see that I'm not really pressing really hard on that pencil. This is really just a guide for us for later on. So there you can see I've got the beginnings of my string here. Now I'm going to zoom in just a little bit on it here, and I'm going to start working in that left-hand corner here. I'm going to go right into this square that we have here, and I'm just going to make a little dot in the middle, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to create a square within the square. So you can see that I've got a square within the square. I'm going to turn my tile clockwise and I'm going to do it again, putting my dot in the center, and once again creating a square within the square. Turning the tile, same thing again, go to the middle, making it work for your hand here. So you can see there's my square within the square, and then one more time. And so this is going to be our string basically for this piece. Now the last thing that I'm going to do with this is I am going to do an aura line of that square on the outside. So you can see that all I'm doing is creating an aura line and turning, aura line and turning, and last one right here, aura line and turning, so that we now have the full string there. So take a moment to do yours. I'm going to do mine, and then when we get back, we're going to start inking in the process. To build my piece here, I'm going to actually go to the center, and I'm going to just ink in the center square, or overdraw the center square, just like so. Now, once I have that, I am going to start to ink in the lines that connect to it, but I'm not going to let them go through it. You can see that I'm really taking my time, and then I'll let that one in the middle work its way through. I'll do the same thing over here, and the same thing over here. And you can see I've got a little wiggle and wobble in my line today, and that's just fine. Turning the tile, letting it slowly make its way down. And then I will come out to my corners here, and I will start to develop this. Now I am not going to build the outside edge of this corner. I'm only going to build the interior. So what I mean by that is I'm going to come in, working with my aura line, and working with this aura line. And then I'll come back and go back to the center here. So it's going to look a little something like that. So I'm going to go all the way around and do the same thing with all of these. So you're going to see me, I'll do another set so that you can see what I'm up to. And then I'll just come back in and work like that so that I'm leaving the edges open, okay? So you go ahead and do yours. I'm going to finish up mine, and then when we come back, we're going to start talking about our first tangle of the day. So this shape is a very sacred shape amongst the Native American peoples and the Pueblo people in Mexico. And one of the symbols that they attribute to this is it is the symbol for the four directions. So you have the north, the south, the east, and the west. Or you could have a symbol for the four seasons. And one of the other things that I heard that was really beautiful was strong body, clear mind, pure spirit, and devotion to others. So this symbol has a lot of beautiful mythology that goes along with it, and I just thought I would mention it because it is such a beautiful string to work with. So I recently came across a tangle that I really liked, and this is called Rosalynn. And what we're going to do is we're going to use this corner for Rosalynn in here. I'm going to turn this on its side here, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to start by creating these petal-like shapes that are going to come down into this corner. Now, once I have that, I'm going to go ahead and create this flex-like shape that's coming out of the center. And then I'm going to come up, create a slight waved line, and come back down again. Now once I have that, I'm going to go back from that soft shape to the corners and create this flap. And then I'll come in and I will pool my ink into that flap area. Now, for those of you who did my Napa class, this was actually a tangle that was kind of an afterthought. And I really enjoyed the piece so much that I had to bring it back in. But so for my Napa class, I threw Rosalynn into these corners here. And this video is going to come out this week. You guys, I've had the worst cold ever. And so I couldn't actually record this class until this week. I lost my voice. So these two videos will be coming out at the same time. But here comes Rosalynn as kind of a filler. And then in this particular class, she's going to be the focal point. So let's start to bring Rosalynn in here, and we're going to start by building another tangle and then throwing Rosalynn in with her. So in order to give Rosalynn a spot to be in, what we're going to do is we're going to build an organic shape for her to jump out of. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to go to where these corners are coming in, and I'm going to go across, and you'll notice that that's right at the midpoint there. All I'm going to do is I'm going to come out, make a seed-like shape, and then I'll do the same thing on the other side. So all I'm doing is creating the seed-like shape and turning the tile. So I'll come in, make a seed shape, make a seed shape, go to the other side, make your little tick mark, and just turning and turning. Now once I have that, you know, you always hear in the Zentangle world, when in doubt, aura out. We are going to aura out. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to come in and I'm going to make a soft aura just like so. You can see that I'm trying to make my lines line up as much as I can. And remember to breathe if you can. Those of us with a cold, that might be a little bit challenging. So you can see that I've got my flower-like shape there. So we're going to bring Rosalynn into the piece here. So you're going to see me turn on its side here. And all I'm going to do is start to build that seed-like shape coming out, or those little petal-like shapes for Rosalynn. So all I'm going to do is come out, and then I'm going to drop down, go out, and then I'm going to drop down, and then I'll go ahead and I'll create that soft flux. I'll go ahead and come up, create that little wavy line, come back and down, and then you're going to see me come back in and rejoin the outside edges. And that's really it. It's super, super fun and super, super simple. So let's do it again. I'm just going to go over here, create one of these, Nice leaf-like shapes. Let it come down. Nice leaf-like shape. Let it come down, creating that flex. Come up and out, create a nice soft wavy line, and then once again rejoining right there. Super fun. Look at how pretty this is. It's going to be gorgeous when we get our chance to do all of our shading and everything. So I'm going to go ahead and do these two. You go ahead and do the same. So once I've got that the way that I want it, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start to ink in or ink over my first drawn lines here. Really taking my time. And then once I have that, I'm going to go ahead and start to build in Rosalynn. And then I'll go ahead and bring in those side flaps. Now I'll come in and I'm going to pool my ink into those little flaps. So I'm going to go all the way around and do just that. You go ahead and do yours. All right, so in keeping with this kind of Native American theme here, what we're going to do is we're going to start to bring some geometrics into the outside edges. I've got my graphite pencil in my hand here, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to start from just a little bit below the corner here, and I'm going to come in towards the center. So once again, looking for that little area below the corner and coming into center, and then I will go ahead and do an aura line and an aura line, and then that way we will be able to work inside of this piece. So I'm going to go ahead and turn, doing the same thing again. Continuing to turn, staying a little bit below that corner. And then the last one right here. And then a little bit below. Right in here. So that you end up with a string that starts to build out from the edges, which is really nice. Now all I'm going to do is just come in and ink those in. Just like so. And if you had any lines that kind of went astray, this is the time to make them a little bit more what you're looking for. And I'm going to go all the way around and I'm going to finish these two up. You go ahead and do yours. All right, so we are going to start to learn a new tangle, and this one is by my friend Angie Gettles, and this is called AZ2. And you know, Angie's been spending a lot of time in the Southwest and in Arizona, and been very interested in Navajo pottery, and so she said that this one was inspired by Navajo pottery, and so she's got these kind of two borders that she works with, and then she's got a line that goes down the center. And then what she does is she creates these triangle-like shapes that dance along that line. So it looks a little something like this. And then what she does is she comes in and creates these little diagonal lines that go down the sides to create these almost argyle shapes that are really, really cool. Now she did do one where it was really interesting, where she had a column and then she had her centerpiece and she staggered her lines so that they weren't, you know, totally lining up the same. And I thought that was kind of interesting. And then she would come in and do those lines as well. Very, very cool, very interesting pattern. I really like this Arizona too. So we're going to add it into our piece now. So I have these two areas in which to work, which is really nice. And so all I'm going to do is I'm going to start by creating that line that's going to go right down the center. And I'm going to do the same thing on the opposite side, and hopefully they'll meet up. Once I have that, I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on this here, and I'm going to start to build those triangles that are coming in towards the center. Now, I'm not staggering mine, I just am letting them come in as they would. And then once I have them the way that I want them, I'm going to go right back to that point of origin and create a diagonal line that goes down. I'll do the same thing on the other side. And that's all that I'm going to do there. So I'll go over to the other side and I'll do the same. So all I'm doing is creating those triangle-like shapes that are pointing in towards the center. And then once I have that, I'll go back to the point of origin and create those diagonal lines. You can see that I'm just going in where I can, and I get this really beautiful pattern that's going in towards the center, which is quite lovely. So I'm going to go all the way around and do that. I'm going to go ahead and get this one on this side too. And I just love the way that this pattern looks. It's just got such a nice tribal feel to it, and it really goes well with what we're doing here. So all I'm doing is creating a line on both sides, and then I'm doing some triangles. And then I'll come back up and just a little diagonal line going down, and once again a little diagonal line going down. Super pretty, really nice to work with. And so you can see that that's really going to give this a nice feeling to it. So go ahead and do yours. I'm going to go ahead and do mine, and then when we come back, we're going to start to talk about the accents for this piece. Now, once I've had an opportunity to go all the way around and work with these here, I am going to pull into these little interstices that I have here, these little triangles on the sides. You could do lines in there if you wanted to do lines, but I am going to do a nice pooling in there because it's a nice nod back to what's happening in the center. So I'm just going to go ahead and pool my ink, turning the tile. Once again, pooling where you can, and just getting that to get a really nice graphic feel. So I'm going to go all the way around and pool my ink into those areas. You go ahead and do yours. So if you were part of the Itty Bitty Kitty series, you know that we did a whole thing on pumpkins for the last one, and we're going to add some pumpkins into our Zia to keep it kind of festive and interesting. Now I am going to be working with my graphite pencil here because we are going to do the pumpkins in with the wallpaper fashion. So all I'm going to do is very lightly start to come out from that corner and do a nice soft arch. And then once I have that, I'm going to go ahead and come back to the center and create these little C curves that are going to come off of the top of each of these arches. Now, once I have that, I will come back in and I'll bring in a little stem for that pumpkin. Now I'm going to go around into each corner and do that, but I will be coming back in with a colored pencil and using that over the graphite. So you want to be using this really as a string. It's not really meant to be done in the dark lines. I really want to keep it very light and very painterly as we come into this. So you're going to see me start to work my way through and give this those pumpkins right in the corners here. And this is kind of why I did not want to add in the lines on the corners here, because I wanted these to be able to emanate outward as a signal of the season in which we're creating. So I'm just going through and just adding out those pumpkins. All right, so go ahead and do yours. I'm going to finish up mine, and then when we come back, we're going to start work right there in those pumpkins. So to give these a really fun Thanksgiving feel. I'm going to be working with a couple of colors in here just to give this a really nice soft feeling for the pumpkin here. So I will be working with the orange, which is PC 918, and then I'll also be working with the Sunburst Yellow, which is PC 917. And then finally, I am going to be working with Magenta, which is PC 930. Now remember, if you don't have the same colors as me, just try to get into the same hue. So a nice warm yellow, warm orange, and a cold red. I'm going to start with that yellow first, and all I'm going to do is very, very lightly start to dust in that area of the pumpkin here. You can see that I'm working in little circles. Let's go ahead and zoom in on this here, and working on the side of the pencil, going very, very lightly in those corners. I'm not worried too much about getting color in or on things. I'm just working it in there, creating a nice foundation. Once I've got it the way that I want it, I'm going to go back and pick up that nice orange here. And I'm going to start by just going right over that yellow and creating the lines for our pumpkin. Once I have my lines for the pumpkin here, I'm going to start to shade in with a little bit of that orange. And I'm going to shade about halfway through the piece. Let's give that a little bit of definition. You can see that I'm leaving a little bit of lightness there so that the pumpkin gets a little bit of a sheen on it. And then on this side, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to shade on the inside part, creating almost this shadow-like shape. Once I have that the way that I want it, I'm going to come back in with a little bit of my magenta here, and I'm going to start to just bring in a little bit of intensity right along that line that I had. This is going to give this a little bit of drama and really make that pumpkin have a little bit of a three-dimensional feel. And you can see that I don't have to press too hard in order to get that red to really start to show up. Now I'm going to pick up a little bit of that orange again, and I'm going to start to blur the line of demarcation where the red is meeting the orange with little circles, giving it a little bit of drama and a little bit of intensity. You can see just little circles, working it through. Same thing over here. And then finally, I'll pick up a little bit in the center, blurring out those lines, really giving this a nice painterly feel. I'm going to pick up a little bit of that yellow, and I'll blur the line of demarcation where the orange is meeting the yellow, leaving just enough of that light sheen. But you can also see that I'm kind of working my way back into the orange as well. Really getting those pumpkins to come to life. I just love the way that this looks together. Just really gives that such a nice soft feel. So I'm going to zoom out here. You're going to see that these pumpkins are really going to emanate nicely from the corners. So I'm going to go all the way around and do just that in all four corners. Have fun with yours. I just love the way that that looks. It just has a really beautiful feel moving outward like that. So we're going to go ahead and take those colors and we're going to start to bring it in towards the middle. I like to carry my colors because it helps your eye to move around a piece and feel like there's some cohesiveness to it. So I'm going to start by picking up the yellow that I have here, and I'm going to go right back to Rosalynn here, and just in that centerpiece I'm going to start with a little bit of the yellow. I'm also going to bring that yellow and start to bring it into those seed-like shapes that we have in the center. You can see that I'm just going very, very lightly, and I'm not being overly cautious with it. Remember, this is just a foundation color, so you can just jump in and jump out and not feel as though you have to be uber careful with it. You know what I'm saying? So I'm going to pick up a little bit of the orange here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go right back to where we have Rosalynn and just shade about halfway up, and then I'm going to go over to these pieces that I have right here and shade halfway up. I'm not pressing hard, I'm going fairly lightly here, leaving enough of that yellow up at the top to really bring a nice lightness to it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up the magenta and I'm going to give a little splash of that red that just gives this such a nice pop. I'm going to do the same thing in here. Leaving enough of that orange to keep it interesting. And then I'll come back in with a little bit of the orange here and just blur that line of demarcation. I'm going to let it dive down just a little bit. See how that softens it out? And then I'll come back to Rosalynn and give that a blur as well. And so that's how I'm going to treat the whole center point. So I'm going to go all the way around and do just that. You go ahead and do yours. Remember to have fun with this. Just enjoy watching the colors as you work. There's something really special about working with this set of colors. That warmth is just, it's very inviting. So I'm going to let go of those warmer colors now, and I'm going to start to bring in a green that I'm really enjoying working with these days. This is the Kelly Green, PC 1096. This is a really kind of earthy green, a little bit more on the darker side. I just love the way that this looks. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to come back into where we have Rosalynn here. And I'm going to start to dust Rosalynn with a little bit of that Kelly Green. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do it right up at the top of that leaf and right at the bottom of the leaf. So right in here and right in here, just to give this a little bit of interest. And then I'm going to come back in and I'm going to press a little bit heavier. This green has such a nice muted feel to it. It just is a really cool color. I like it very much. Come back in over here. It's great for this time of year, this color. Just dust it in and soften up the edges a little bit. You can see that I'm doing little circles and going very, very lightly. Press a little bit heavier down towards the bottom. And then soften up as I go away from those corners just to give this a little bit of interest. The other place that I'm going to be using this is up here where we have our pumpkin. I'm going to go back in right where we made our stem, and I'm going to give this a really nice dusting inside and leave a little bit of white right on the end there. So I'm going to go all the way around and work with these and then work with the pumpkins as well. I'm going to build a little bit more off of this here. I'm going to pick up my Sienna Brown, which is PC 945. And I'm going to start to work in this area that looks like it has a little M like shape to it. I'm going to take that Sienna Brown and I'm going to start to just work on the side of that pencil and bring some of that really nice warm brown into the piece here. What I like about this is that it really is great for the season. I don't tend to work with a lot of browns, but when I do, I really like working with these colors, especially the Sienna Brown. And working with the yellows and the greens next to it is really, really quite beautiful. So just getting in there, bringing in a little bit of that pop. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little bit of a perimeter shade to this. So it's going to look like this. I'm going to come in and start to build a shadow just by using a little bit more pressure, not a ton, but a little bit more. I apologize, guys. I know that my voice sounds a little bit nasally from this cold. Just getting in there. And I'm also going to bring in just a little bit of a shadow around the flower in here. Now remember that yellow that we were working with earlier? I'm going to pick a little bit of that up. And I'm going to start to blur the lines of demarcation just with a little bit of that yellow. And this is going to give this a really nice earthy feel, but also give it a really nice cohesiveness with everything that is around it. You know, you can work back and forth between the two and get a really nice blend. But I love the idea of seeing a little bit of lightness in there and using those colors to create that kind of almost like a maize color for corn. Just getting in there and developing that shadow a little bit more. So you can see that that's going to help build out that corner and keep it really interesting. If you wanted to even get a little bit heavier on that shading around that corner, you can, just to keep it a little bit more poppy and interesting. So play, have some fun with this, and then when we come back, we're going to work a little bit more on those edges. Let's start to bring some blues into this piece here. I'm going to bring in my my cobalt turquoise. This is PC 105. I really like this one because it has kind of a tealish feel to it. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back up to AZ2, and all I'm going to do is start to bring in a little bit of a shadow underneath each of these little triangles. So you're going to see me just lightly dust a little shadow underneath the triangle to give this some drama. I'm going very, very lightly. I'll even do this one as well. And I'll come back in right along the black line and really give it a push. Just to really give it some interest to it. I'm going to go over to the other side and do the same. So just bringing down a little bit of a shadow. Lightly dusting in there, and then going ahead and giving it a little bit of intensity. And then I'm going to go ahead and start to do little circles with a little bit of my white pencil just to give this a little bit of a blurring, just to give it just a little bit of interest. And you'll notice that I'm trying to leave as much of the white in there as I can, but I do want it to have a little bit of that painterly feel to it. So all I'm doing is very lightly bringing some white in there and moving that pigment around. Just love the way that that looks. I'll give this a little bit more of that shadow And same thing over here. I just love the way that it kind of looks like they're going into or in towards one another. And so I'm going to go around to each of these pieces and dust that with a little bit of the blue. Let's start to bring some of that blue into these corners here. I'm going to start to work up in this top corner and just focusing on the area where we have that little line from our original frame. All I'm going to do is just very, very lightly dust this in and give this a little bit of interest around the pumpkin itself. And then I'll come into where we've got our stem and just give it a little bit of a shadow so that that pumpkin stands out just a little bit more. You can see I'm kind of lightening up my touch as I move away from the center here. Really just getting that pumpkin to pop right off the page while not having a hard edge on that corner, keeping it really nice and light. So I'm going to go all the way around and do just that in each of those corners. So I'm going to pick up that green again and I'm going to start to bring it up into these upper corners that we have in here. So what I'm going to do is I'll just come in and I'll start to dust in that green right into those corners that we have. And then once I have that, let's go ahead and zoom in. I'm going to start to give this a little bit of a heavier edge on that black line. Pick this up as well. Now I'm going to take those two and kind of blend them into each other. I've got a little bit of my white color pencil here. I'm just making sure that there's no other color on it and just giving this a soft blur. And then I'm going to take just a dusting of that yellow and bring it right into the upper corner right in here. Just right over the top of that green. And what that's going to do is it's just going to give that a nice sharp point on it. And you can see that your eye jumps around in there and it has a really nice feel to it. So I'm going to go around to each of my corners and do just that. So many of you know I like to wait until the very, very end to do any kind of graphite work because I just don't love the idea of smearing and smudging while I'm working over the top of a piece. So I'm going to start by working in the centerpiece here just a little bit. And we're going to start just by doing a little bit of graphite right in the valleys of the flower here. You can see I'm not pressing too hard. And then I'll come in and start to blur out those edges, softening it up with my tortillon. Now, if you don't have one of these little blending stumps, you can always grab a Q-tip out of the bathroom, and that will work just fine. And if you want to go back in and give it a little bit more intensity towards the center, and give it a little bit more intensity. You can see I'm turning. Getting right in there. And then I'll blur it out yet again. Getting that really nice feeling coming out from the center. You can see how that's already given this such an interesting feel in towards the center. Now I'm going to go ahead and pick up some of that graphite again and bring it over to Rosalynn. And I'll go ahead and give that a soft dusting as well. Now you'll notice I'm going to leave a little bit of lightness right on the edges. I just love the way that that looks. It gives it such a unique softness. So I'm going to go all the way around with Rosalynn and start to work on that as well. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take that graphite again, and I'm going to just start to work on the left side of this internal string. And you'll notice that I'm just going to do a little dusting moving upward. Then I'll keep going through, or rather I'm working on the right side. Sorry. And just turning. I'll pick up a little bit of my tortillon, give that a little softening as it works its way out. Coming back in towards the center. And if you want to go ahead and give that a little bit more darkening, and give that a little bit more. Just to keep it a little bit more contrasty. And then I think for this one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the center and I'm going to deepen it. So I'm just going to go ahead and give this a little bit of a crescent moon in the center. You can see that I've got that crescent moon going. And I'm going to come in and I'm going to pool my ink right into the centerpiece. I just love the way that that looks. I think that gives it a really nice softness, but also draws your attention in a really nice way. So as I zoom out, you can start to see that this is really coming together in a nice way. It's very, very soft, very, very fun. Love the way that this looks. So take a moment to finish up yours, and then when we come back, we're going to bring some highlighting into this piece. I've gone ahead and picked up my Jelly Roll 10 here. This is a white gel pen, and I'm just going to come in and start to bring in just some juicy highlights into this piece. I'm going to work on the right hand side and just bring a nice highlight down here with a little dot. So I'll go ahead and turn my tile clockwise and just bring a couple of little highlights in there and just have some fun with that. And then I'll come out to where I have Rosalynn and just give a little bit of a highlight in the center of Rosalynn as well. You can see I'm just turning as I go. And then I'm going to start to work my way outward into these points out here. And I'm just going to give a nice dot in each of these corners here. Just to give it a little bit of interest. Which is really kind of fun and gives it a really nice feel. You could even go into where you have the pumpkins and add a little bit of a sheen into your pumpkins as well. I'm going to keep a nice light touch on that. I don't want it to be too graphic. I want those to stay very painterly. So go ahead and play. Have fun with this. And I'll see you back here in a minute. So I'm going to come into these corners that I have here and start to give this a little bit of a dusting with some of the graphite. I just feel like it's just a little bit blah and needs a little bit of interest. So I'm going to come in and just add in a little bit of interest into those corners as well. Super fun, super playful. Just going all the way around and giving that a little bit of interest. Because otherwise I feel like it just doesn't have anything to offer the rest of the piece. It's just kind of an afterthought, as it were. Super fun. Love the way that that gives this piece a little bit of interest. Really love the way that this one came out. Really, really fun. I'm going to go ahead and put my chop in this. I'm going to come down in this little corner right here and add in my initial. And this is just your opportunity to offer gratitude for the time that you spent creating today. I'm going to bring in my original piece here, and you can see the difference between these two. I used different colors. I actually omitted just the purple for our class today. This first one felt really, really fun and vibrant to me, but I was looking for something that was a little bit more muted and more fallish for this particular class, but you could always come back and play and do different things with it. But I really love the way that this one came out. It has a really nice softness to it, and I hope that you like it too. So if you enjoyed today's class, please give the class a thumbs up or leave a nice review in the comments section. And if you would like to hit the subscribe button, you'll be notified every time I add a class to my YouTube channel. We have a great community over on Facebook where we share all of our class pieces. It's called the Tangled Yogi Art Community page, and I'd love to see your work over there. So please come and join us. That would be wonderful. Well, that's it for me. I'm Romy Marks, your Tangled Yogi. Thanks so much for joining me today. I hope you have a happy and healthy holiday.